Down with Jay and Ryan on a Friday night. Down with Jay and Ryan, gonna talk some shite. They will give you some advice about your life, but they only drink the cloudy beers that fucking shite. Cause it's the Trouble Boys, TBC, yeah, it's the Trouble Boys, TBC, yeah, it's the Trouble Boys, TBC.
In today's episode, we have Bethan, who is the co-director of Fathers Mental Health UK and also a Movember community ambassador. So, Bethan, how are you doing today?
I am very well, thank you. I'm very good, especially because I have this right now. So,
nice. So, who are you drinking? We normally ask this at the end, but...
Do you know what? I'm drinking Cwrw Llyn. So, it's a North Walian brewery, and it's very nice. It's lovely.
Nice.
I highly recommend it. If you pop over to North Wales, simple. Drive.
Okay. You'll have to send us one in the post and we can send you the money for it.
I will.
There you go. That's an easier solution. But
can we try and pronounce it? Can we try and pronounce that bit? Just for fun.
Yeah, go on, mate. You go for it, because I read at like a third grade level, so you do it.
Can you say it again, Beth, like one time? The brewery.
Well, Cwrw. So Cwrw. C-W-R-W. So W in Welsh is a U. So it's Cwrw Llyn.
Cwrw Llyn.
You sound like trying to speak fucking Urdu or something, mate.
That was really good. That was really good, actually.
Sorry, Jay. Continue with your question, mate. I do apologise.
No, it's fine, mate. I was just saying, so if you don't mind just telling us just a little bit about like the background and how you got into, Fathers Mental Health UK and becoming an ambassador for Movember.
Yeah. So long story short, I got into, so my interest in fathers' mental health originally came off the back of having lost my own father to mental health. So I lost my dad back in 2017. And so he had bipolar and was an alcoholic. And so over the course of about a decade, I'd say he had 8 attempts with the 9th successful. And so for me, once that had come to a head, so I was 23 when he passed away, it hit me that the area that I'm from in Wales, he actually was, I'd say probably at the time, number 8 in a short period of time. And since then, I think there's been 12. So within 7 years, there's been 12 suicides in my village. And it kind of put me in a space where I started to think about the real issues around post-industrial areas. I come from a mining town, and quite often when you're in a post-industrial area, there's a severe lack of investment, there's poverty, there's low educational attainment, and that more often than not impacts men and boys way more than it impacts women and girls. And so the more I started to read up on it, I decided to go to university and do my degree in psychology. But it wasn't until I was doing my research that I came across just how little research there is on dads and their well-being, their mental health. And so it pushed me into a direction where I met my now co-director, who has been working for the last 25 years in this area. And we have now started Fathers Mental Health UK. And so we're hoping that we'll be able to go into companies, organizations, institutions, and deliver training on various areas of fathers' mental health and enable them really to support dads, within their employment, within their, organizations. And so obviously that's also how I fell into Movember as well a few years back. I was really kind of taken by their campaigns, whether that involved mental health and suicide or prostate cancer or testicular cancer. And to be fair, I wasn't an ambassador for a while and was still fundraising until I got kind of cornered into becoming an ambassador by someone from there. And it's great fun. It's really good. But yeah, that's more or less how I found myself in the position I'm in now. So yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. And of course, like, we're both really sorry to hear about your dad. That's, it's awful to hear that. But just hearing you talk about it, then, like, you're so passionate about it, and you can tell by how you speak about it, like, you proper know your shit and all stuff like that. So I'm not surprised you've been snapped up from Movember. They probably just wanted to get you in straight away. But yeah, I was just going to say, just on the back of some of the stuff you said there, it kind of segues nicely onto a question that I briefly prepared before the call. So I was going to ask, you hear so much about, like, women, like you were saying about men, then you hear so much about women suffering with stuff like prenatal and postnatal depression and stuff like that. And I was going to ask, why do you think it's not as, much of a thing for men? Because I thought that, because I've got, 2 children myself, and my own personal experience, I think as a man and a dad, watching a woman carry a baby for 9 months and go through the whole pregnancy and then give birth and then stay off work, like, they sacrifice their jobs, their careers. A lot of women obviously, like, put on weight and all stuff like that and don't feel as, like, sexy and all stuff like that. So me personally, I'd feel like I couldn't say shit if I was struggling, because I'd think, like, I'd just get told to shut the fuck up and get called selfish or something.
Well, it's funny you say that, because that's pretty much what happens. So, for instance, in your experience, when you would have a health visit, when your partner was pregnant, quite often the questions are asked by the health visitor will, be directed towards the mother. So they should. But on a lot of occasions, the partner is asked at one point to leave the room, so the health visitor can have a private conversation with the mother. And on those occasions, questions such as, is there any violence in the home? Is there any aggression happening? Is it, touch wood, more often than not, that answer is going to be no. But that health visitor is not told to take the father aside and ask the same question. And now this is a problem, because research shows that postnatal rage is something that it exists, and it increases as pregnancy goes on. And this is solely due to the endocrine system. It's solely due to hormones. It's not something that the mother, the partner, chooses. However, we're dealing with 2 people. There are 2 people having a baby. That person may be carrying that baby, but there are 2 people that are involved. And so it starts right from the beginning, as I said, with the health visitor. But the reason why, personally, I think that the conversations around postnatal and perinatal mental health for men aren't touched upon near enough is 2 reasons. I think it's down to purposeful bias and not enough research. So recently, it came out that new dads within the first 6 months are 47% more likely to consider taking their own life than at any other point in their life in the future. And so this is like a huge problem that no one's addressing. That's 47% more likely than at any other time in their life. And so and there's also research to show that dads that have already had a child, so experienced fathers, are more likely to develop PTSD because of previous birth trauma that they might have witnessed their partner have. And so for my colleague Mark, who's the co-director, he's been in perinatal and postnatal mental health awareness for men for the last 25 years off the back of his own experience he developed postnatal depression. He had a mental breakdown and didn't realize what was happening until he went to the gym and spoke to another guy about it and had that, conversation. And so I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because as you said, you might feel that, how on earth can I have this conversation? How can I bring up the fact that I might be struggling or I might be feeling a certain way?
Yeah.
It's, when I said about bias, I think it does come down to how we in society still, women to talk about men's health and men's mental well-being. We always touch on this, it's okay to talk situation, but a lot of the time it's still a bit iffy. So yeah, I think it's just it's something that is changing gradually. There are more academics that are looking at it, and for instance, there's a birth trauma all parliamentary group that are looking at this as well. So policy is also changing, but it will be a gradual thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you said then, because for me personally, I just would have felt way too guilty or anything to even pipe up. I think when I had my daughter, I didn't even know men could get prenatal and postnatal. I just because when you're there at the hospital and stuff, you're very much just they're all right, Dad, we need you to just support mum and support. And that's fair enough, completely.
Yeah.
But like you said, there's never that. How are you feeling? And if even the fact, right, I think it's mad that dads have to go back to work after 2 weeks in a lot of places. You know what I mean? I know a lot of companies now are relooking at paternity packages and stuff, but 2 weeks. And I hope, obviously, Ryan don't mind me saying this. I'm sure he won't. But when Ryan had his first child, this is before COVID. So Ryan was in the office 5 days a week, and it's the same for my younger brother too. And I feel like a lot of dads struggle to create that bond at first, whereas with me, I was quite lucky that it was during COVID when I had my daughter, because I was at home, so I could still go down and change a nappy and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, 2 weeks is ridiculous. I was, again, it leads on to another nice question, but I don't want to take over from Ryan and not let him get any questions in. So I'll just ask this question quickly, and I think Ryan can probably touch on this a lot better than I can, to be fair. But when I was looking on your website earlier on, the Fathers Mental Health UK website, which is very lovely, I must say. I think it's mad the difference though on desktop and mobile. It looks mint on desktop, and then when I went on mobile, I was like, "Yo, this is mad!"
It was a quick Canva job because we're waiting to get an official one, and so I did it, and I was like, "Yeah, that looks sick."
Yeah.
And I opened on my phone, I was like, "That's not my business. I'm not dealing with that."
It's so funny though, because the videos and that on desktop, they play on their own as you scroll down and that. Whereas on desktop, it's got all the UI of an iPhone saying play and rewind and stuff, and I'm like, that's mad. But anyway, I was saying, I was looking at your website, I was snooting around looking at a few different pages, and there was something that stood out to me, and it was in a bullet point list, and it said neurodiversity and fathers. So I was just going to ask, one, if you could explain that a bit more, and then maybe two, if Ryan, if you wanted to kind of jump in and tell Bethan possibly about your experience, with your son, and not knowing obviously what autism, not knowing what it was, but you didn't know your son had autism at first, did you? Until he was 3 or 4, was it?
Yeah, it was 3 when he got diagnosed.
So bless him. I think it's, when it comes to neurodiversity, even just singularly, it's a different experience for every person. But when we're talking about, parents and neurodiversity, and especially fathers, you mentioned, just now that you went back to work, after 2 weeks. Now, the guilt that can come with that, because you're not having that time with your child, can sit there in a vacuum. But if you double that with potentially having a neurodiverse condition, whether that's ADHD, OCD, Tourette syndrome, dyslexia, dyspraxia, whatever that might be, that can feed in, to your inability, I should say, to kind of comprehend what's going on in that moment and be able to process and be able to figure a path forward, because it affects your executive function. And so for Mark, again, my co-director, he found out maybe 5 years ago that he had ADHD, and how that was missed, I don't fucking know, because that man is like the personification of ADHD. He's ADHD walking, and I love him. But for Mark, it's a real passion project, because, for him, he just feels that there needs to be a lot more support for dads, that whether they're supporting their child that has neurodiversity or whether they themselves are neurodiverse, because it's a minefield, even singularly. And so, doing that when you have someone that's dependent on you is a completely different ballgame, especially when you're also in a relationship. So there's all these different stresses. And so, we can support people that are neurotypical doing that, of course. But there is just some extra steps that could be implemented for someone that is neurodiverse. Yeah.
So I think there's like a fat lag for Ryan, so I'm just waiting for him to jump in. I don't want to keep talking and taking over him.
There's not a lag. I was just waiting for Beth to be finished before I interjected, should we say? Yeah. So what you were saying before, about, just like to go back really quickly about the like traumatic births and stuff for mothers. Like when my son was born, he came out non-responsive. He was floppy as anything, and like the midwives like lifted his arm up and it just shot back down to his body basically. And I literally delivered him. Like, I had the gloves on. I pulled him out, where from. And, there was no crying or anything. You absolute dick.
There's a lag. I said it about 5 minutes ago.
Anyway, and like put him like on the bed and stuff like that. And I'm waiting for some sort of like cry or movement or something like that, and they lifted his arm up and bang straight back to his body, and then they got loads of towels and were like aggressively like rubbing him, and like that's what they do to sort of like wake them up essentially, and they were rubbing him, and I was just looking down at this thing that I'm now so attached to and so in love with, and I just felt helpless and useless, and just like, you're like, I've met you for 4 seconds, and the first problem you have, I can't help you with it. And granted that the birth itself for my ex-wife it was traumatic, it really was. So I'm not taking anything away from her in that aspect. Like, it was tough, but then while that's all happening, she's obviously like on the gas and air and sort of getting tended to herself, because it's exhausting, the actual process for them. And I am just watching this thing unfold. Like, I'm not like religious or anything like that aspect, but I was just like looking down and going like, anything, please help this child. And then anyway, about like, I don't know, maybe like a minute or so, he started crying and things like that. And it was like, for fucking hell, like, that was like the that was what it was. I don't know, was it traumatic? Like, I would say so, yeah, but I don't want to like take anything away from the birth aspect. You know what I mean?
But this is the thing, you're not. Like, there's a collective experience and there's individual experiences. Like, you are the father in this. Like, you were present, you were there, you had to manage that situation. There's a reason why there's 25% of fathers in the UK that are living without a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder from birth trauma, because we don't talk about it. I mean, I was listening to Jamie Lang's Good Company podcast with Louise Thompson on recently, and she was speaking about what she's gone through when she had her son and the traumatic birth that she had. And she said that it was only recently, when she was writing her new book, Lucky, that she stopped and really thought about her partner Ryan's experience with it all, and how traumatic it's been for her over the years, that she didn't think about how Ryan had to step in and had to essentially support her and their son, from the beginning. And so, it's very valid. Like that's an incredibly traumatic experience to have.
Is that
Thank you.
Did you say Louise Thompson? Is that Louise Thompson from Made in Chelsea? Yeah. That's it's good. That I'll have to give that a listen. Did you say that's a podcast? Sorry. Or?
Yeah. So it's his new podcast called Good Company. He's got some really good guests on there, but he did one with Louise, and it was really interesting. It talks all about what happened to her. It was really good.
Yeah, that's mad. It's something you just don't think about, isn't it? Like the dad in that situation, and like you said, then Ryan in that situation, you must have absolutely shit yourself, like, and just I that was like my biggest fear. Like when my partner was giving birth, I don't know why, I just had this horrible thought in my head that either something was going to happen to baby or something was going to happen to my partner. And I was sat there and I was like, just thinking like, oh no, like, and then once like baby was born and everything like that, and everyone was okay, I was just so like, I was more just like grateful, like that everyone was okay. Like, do you know what I mean? I was sat there and I was just like so happy. But yeah, that must have been.
Did anyone follow up with you afterward, Ryan? Like, did anyone say anything?
No. to put it brief, no, absolutely nothing. No. And I just wanted to touch on again something that you said before. I know about the dads going back to work very soon after the child's born, and the guilt that comes with not being able to bond and see the child. I also think that a sort of like secondary guilt piles on, knowing the fact that your wife or girlfriend, whomever is there's the mother of your child, needs help and you can't provide it, because that's men's default, is to be needed. And because we know that our partner is at home needing help, texting us saying, I've not had a minute's sleep, the baby only naps for fucking 10 minutes, and while they're napping I've got to do the fucking pots and stuff like that, and you're reading that at work and all you feel is guilt because you're not there to help. So I think there's like a double barrage of guilt that comes with it, that obviously has more of a negative impact on the dad in that aspect. Obviously, it's really hard for the mother at home. Again, not taking anything away from that aspect, never would. But just speaking purely from a dad's point of view and perspective, the guilt thing is really real, and it stings, because they're thinking we're at work fucking having brews and chinking glasses with people and stuff, and we're not. All we're wanting to do is get back home to our wife and child. That's it.
Yeah.
What are you laughing at?
Yeah, like you said, it's different now. Obviously, we're... No, it was. I was just going to say, and she had to have your tea on the table ready for when you got home.
I mean, obviously, does she want to get beaten or what? That's a joke. That's a joke.
Yeah, no,
JK.
It's insane.
Capital
cancelled, bro.
Capital JK. That was a very, very misogynistic thing to say, James. How dare you?
Yeah, but it is so much different though, like you said, because now I'm, in terms of my work-life balance, I'm like hybrid. So 2 days in the office, 3 days at home. So I always find that the days in the office, I feel like I get so much more work done and so much more productive and stuff like that, because, I feel like when you are at home, and especially in the 6-week holidays when the kids are off, you do find yourself kind of going down, just like make a brew, and then you might get caught for a little bit. And then you might do this and do that, and then on your lunch, like, you take the kids to the park and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, I feel like it is quite different, and I feel like I am really lucky in the sense that I think I would have really struggled being in the office for 5 days a week and then not seeing like the kids for that long and stuff like that, especially in them early stages, because I just feel like that's an opportunity for baby to just get fully attached to mum. And then that's where I think a lot of dads do struggle, when they're trying to bond with the baby or give the baby a bottle, and the baby's just like, nah, I just want my mum and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is mad, because like before even speaking to you today, Bethan, I hadn't even thought about that in the sense of like health visitors and all kind of stuff like that. You know, how they take mum aside in private, and you know, there's never anything for the dad and stuff like that. I'm not saying poor me. I'm just saying like it's mad. Like we're aware of the world we live in. You know.
Yeah.
But it's mad, and like you said, that probably doesn't help when it does come to a lot of men taking their own life and stuff, because they probably feel from fucking day one, like I can't fucking speak to anyone because I'll just get called a pig and get told it's 2024. Do you know what I mean?
So it's interesting as well. So what actually happens is not yet fully understood how. There is research going into it, but when your partner is pregnant, obviously there's a change in their hormones. And once they give birth, again, there's a change in the hormones. But what has been recognized to happen is that in the male and the father, they also experience a change in hormones. And so your testosterone dips. Now, there's a significant danger when that happens, because when someone has too low testosterone, like their NMOLs are like too low, that is linked to suicide. And so when we're talking about, you know, men's health, and we talk about it from like a policy perspective, the narrative a lot nowadays when we talk about men's health is either suicide or violence against women and girls, which is, you know, they're both valid concerns. However, when we're talking about it, what we talk about in society ultimately informs policy. And when we're talking about policy changes, we should be paying more attention to paternity. We should be paying more attention to, you know, men's health throughout the birth stages, throughout the, you know, perinatal stages, because, you know, you keep saying, both of you, oh, I don't want to take away from my partner. I don't want to take away from, you know, my ex-wife or my, you know, my current partner. It's not yin or yang. Like you are two equal people existing at the same time, and you are more than entitled to be able to, you know, stand there and say, oh, wait, my experiences and my feelings are valid. But because there's that inherent belief that you can't say anything, and that does also come from social media. You know, you only need to go into, you know, comment section on some things, and there'll be comments like, oh, you don't need to carry the, you know, this baby for 9 months. Like, what the fuck have you done? You know, but shut the fuck up. Yeah. And, you know, if that's being celebrated, that's only going to, you know, increase discourse around that and it being more acceptable, and stop policy from being held accountable, basically policy change from being held accountable. So it's fucking annoying. But you were both valid, so shut up.
I've got a question.
Basically.
Mm-hmm. Do you think
I'm nervous.
No, it's fine. It's just some of this popped into my head, so I thought it might be worth mentioning. So, you know what you said there, sort of like society and us not wanting to take anything away from our partners or whatever. Do you think the generation before us who became dads, i.e. our fathers, who say stuff to us like that I heard going, well, you don't matter anymore. It's all about your wife and your child now. Or good luck going out with your friends now, or good luck thinking that you fucking matter on this earth now. Like that got inbuilt into my head, and I know it probably did the same. It might not have done the same with Jay, but it definitely did with me. Whereas I went into fatherhood knowing or feeling like I am first, second, third best at most. So I don't matter. It's all about them, and I have to do everything in my power to put myself low and put them high. And then it just sort of like your foundation going into it is already.
Piggyback on this when you finish, sorry.
Absolutely, mate. Of course you can. I forgot where I was at. So your foundation in.
Go on, sorry, there's a bit of a lag. Go on, I'll shut up. Sorry, go on.
I put my hand up before, like I was in fucking school. That's what I was saying. Oh yeah, the foundation of me going into fatherhood was that I don't matter, and only they matter. James, you have the floor.
just very quickly, I just wanted to piggyback on the back of that and actually say, I think there's a bit of a warped disconnection kind of between our father generation and our generation, in the sense, I know for myself and you, like Ryan, we're both very hands-on dads. We'll be seen out pushing our kids in the prams and fucking up, spending our weekends in play centres, this, that, and this. And I know us growing up, it was very the opposite. Like, our mums would do everything, and our dads would sit and watch football and drink beer and stuff like that. So I was just going to say, in terms of what you just said then, Ryan, like, I think when they're giving us advice, it's a bit like, hold on, like, you're from a fucking different generation, mate. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's a bit of a weird one, but yeah, no, it's a dead good point that you made, mate. Yeah, really good point.
Yeah, I think, like, you know, when we talk about like psychological literacy, Gen X are a pain in the ass for that, because, and it's not their fault, you know, it's not their fault to a degree, but this is where, you know, obviously if you're being told something, you know, by a trusted figure, your father, you know, in your life, even if it's something that you, in your, you know, heart, know not to be correct, if someone tells you something or says something to you enough times, you're going to internalize it. You know, that's just how it goes. And so, you know, I do think with the generational imprint, I think that does bring about difficulties. But as you said, Jay, I do think that with generational change, so the younger millennials are definitely leading the change in how they're beginning to, you know, gain that confidence in parenting, you know, the way that they want to parent. I think Gen Z will also be a very important generation when it comes to fatherhood, because I think they'll probably be leading the cause when it comes to actually being able to, you know, feeling comfortable to communicate what's going on with them. But it's all just comes with, you know, time and change, unfortunately. But it's something that if you, you know, recognize it at the point that you're in now, is that, you know, you can make conscious change and encourage your mates who are going to become fathers to, you know, to talk about it and check in with them, you know, knowing, you know, now what you may know, you know, that it, you know, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. He's gone. He's just texted us there. He's nipped to the toilet. But yeah, it's always a bit difficult in the, because we've been going over this now for a while. Like at Ryan's house, he's got fucking proper shit in there, and he gets so annoyed when I say it. But I can like hear when me and you talk, I can hear him hearing it like about 3 seconds later. So there's a bit of a little lag for him. But yeah, I was going to say anyway, just on the back of all that, when I was doing a bit of like researching on your page and all kind of stuff like that, I did notice, I think before the Father's Mental Health UK page was a Father's Mental Health UK page, that it used to be a clothing brand called Met. Is that right?
No.
Oh,
yeah, I really, really want to hear you say that again.
Oh, I only... Well, the next question was actually going to be like, can you tell us more about Met?
I can tell you more about Met.
Met. Yeah.
Met.
Let's see if Ryan can pronounce this. I'll text him.
Yeah.
Just so
please.
Right,
I'm going to wait.
I'm going to text you. And it's funny because I pronounce it like that purely based on how I thought you spelt it. So I'm just texting you this now, Ryan. Read that out for us.
Met. Is that wrong?
Is that what I said?
I can't blame you. I can't blame you because you asked, you know, you're saying it how the English name is spelled, so I get it. So in Welsh it means all right, mate, basically. And so it comes from a phrase that in Wales we basically say iawn cont instead of iawn. Well, I'm not going to say the actual C word on this podcast.
Go for it.
But that's where it derives from. And so, cunt. Okay, fine, I can. That's fine.
Didn't need any hesitation then. Go for it.
Yes.
Thank you. Feels good, doesn't it? But yeah, so Young Mate started as just an educational platform. I was coming across so much research, my degree, and wanted to put it onto, condensed posts on Instagram, whether that was about masculinity or, incel membership or wherever else. But it started to, pick up speed a little bit. And so I thought, well, if I sell merchandise, I can donate the profits every 2 months to different grassroots groups in Wales, every month. And so it was going well. And then we managed to host the first men's wellbeing event in Wales, which was really stressful, but very fun because I keep saying we. I held it in our local welfare hall. And so that was a fucking nightmare. Do you guys have where are you guys from actually?
Manchester.
Okay.
Oh.
So
sorry about that lag.
So in mining communities, typically you have welfare halls, and so it was hosted there, and it was all good fun and stuff. But in the end, it got to a point where I thought to myself, well, I need to kind of focus. I prefer to focus on the Father's Mental Health CIC, and so it came to a close. But the nice thing at the time was that it was my main goal was to bring grassroots groups together and have them collaborate and have young lads and older gents learn about what was around them, because I think that's half the battle. I mean, you see the increase in people going to groups like Andy's Man Club, which is great, but if they don't know they're there, that's a huge issue, because we have a whole chunk of gents above the age of 60 that might not be online, so they're not gonna know what's there. So yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah, I can imagine how that's being really stressful to organise, and obviously you're thinking, I hope people turn up and things like that. Was it just a bit of a farce? Did it take the sort of fun aspect out of it for you because you were so hyper focused on spreading the message and things like that? And
well, a little bit, but my mate turned up and he makes CBD gummies and stuff. And I didn't have anything to eat that day. And I just kept eating these gummies and drinking pints. And I was floating through the fucking air. I didn't feel like my feet touched the ground. I was just I felt resurrected. It was awful.
How many gummies did you have?
I don't know. He had a whole fucking jar. He kept walking around the whole welfare hall going, have some more to everyone. And I just put my hand in and just be I was just gone.
Shit.
It was lovely.
That's mad. Me and Ryan went through a phase once of taking CBD gummies, before bed to help us sleep.
Yeah.
And they just make you feel like you're fucking floating on a cloud, don't they?
Yeah.
That's mad. Do you have any more questions, mate?
Yeah, there's a few, but you go first, man.
No, it's all right. Go on.
Okay. I wanted to touch on where does toxic masculinity breach sorry, no, I'll try that again. Where does masculinity sort of take the step over to toxic masculinity? Because women, in sort of the most average sense, are attracted to masculine men, and obviously some of the traits are gonna share. If you put them in what's one of the diagrams, where you draw circles, then the intersections sort of meet. It's a Venn diagram. Is it a Venn diagram?
Yeah.
And some of the traits that were in toxic masculinity are going to be in masculinity. So like, where does masculinity like go spill over into toxic masculinity? Because it's a very hard line to walk, I think.
Okay, so first off, it's not a simple answer because it really depends on what you define as toxic masculinity. Because historically, toxic masculinity, it was not a feminist concept. It was coined by a men's health movement pioneer. And he coined the term because he was speaking about his own dad. And so it was actually used to refer to authoritarian, absent fathers, not this behavior that we talk about today. And so, when we talk about toxic masculinity, its popularization, has happened over the last 10 years, I guess. And, it really does depend on what you define as toxic, because if we talk about things like, you often hear, for example, positive masculinity, that's a new one, that's a fun one. But if we talk about positive masculinity and put that here, then we just have masculinity. So does this mean masculinity on its own is inherently negative? Do you have to try to make something positive consciously, because otherwise it's just shit? Because that's not okay. I mean, in the UK, last year, for example, 41% of sixth formers in England were told that boys are a problem to society. 41% of boys are a problem. And so when we, with your question, like, where does it breach? I think the question really people should be asking is that, why are we placing certain behaviors that are, largely displayed by both sexes, because they are, into, toxicity for one sex, but we don't talk about toxicity for the other sex, which is very much present. And so I know I haven't really answered your question, so I apologize.
I think you did.
But but I think, it's a real problem when we talk about it, I think, because it's thrown around a lot as well. It doesn't have any academic definition, and it's just, it's one of my pet hates, so I'm very sorry. But I think to try and answer your question, to not be a dickhead, I don't know. I can't fucking answer. I don't know.
That's fine. Honestly, you did. You gave more than enough there, because I'm quite happy that you sort of took it as, oh no, it happens, like both sides do it, which I think is very valid. And like that wasn't necessarily the answer I was searching for, but it's nice to hear that, like, oh yeah, like it does happen on the other side of the foot as well, like these traits. And I do agree that masculinity is subjective to the person who is doing like certain actions. Like some people might think changing a nappy is feminine, whereas to me and Jay, we think that's masculine. Yes. Or taking our kids out in prams and fucking getting clips put in our hair by our daughters, getting our fingernails painted by them, that's feminine. Whereas we're like, that's masculine as fuck, doing all that shit, like to be to us anyway. I might be speaking too much for Jay here, but I think that it's is, if you just it is massively, isn't it? I definitely agree with that.
I mean, if you were to go on TikTok, right, and type in men, which I did the other day, that's fun.
Was it a late night?
You type in men. One of the most popular things. I've fucked my algorithm now as well. I'm literally just, it's bad. But one of the most, the popular thing recently has been man obey, right? Man obey, And I think what's funny is that, obviously the most horrific thing happened recently with the stabbings in Southport. No one can get away from that. Like, it was awful, but when something like that is used online to validate hatred toward an entire sex, we have a problem. And so I was speaking to someone recently about, there's this comment that people like to throw around when it comes to the man obey situation, which is not all men, but always men. Now, there's two caveats to this, because violence against women and girls is, as we know, a very real thing. However, if we look at violence against men, a lot of people will want to pass off that perpetrators of violence against men are men, like just ballpark, all are men. It's not. Like, over 90% of men that face violence, the perpetrators are women. And so when we talk about man obey, if you want to, use violence, you can flip it and say, woman or alligator, because the majority of perpetrators of violence against children are women. And so, but we wouldn't do that, because we know majority of mothers, the majority of women are kind and caring. And so we wouldn't even think to use that, phrase. But because the hatred of man nowadays is so acceptable and trendy and fun, it's something that's just not thought twice about. And and so that's something that is just crazy to witness. And I can't imagine what it's like for young boys' self-concept, or even you guys, to a degree, to see how normal it has become, so I don't know. It's a bit wild.
No, absolutely. I've got, in response to what you just said, I've got two routes that I can go down here, and they're both kind of rabbit holes, and I'm just thinking which one to go down. Well, first, I was going to say, when you were speaking at first about the, did you say obey men? Is that what you said it was called? Like the kind of trend thing?
Yeah, man obey.
Man obey. When you was like kind of describing it, when you were saying like not all men, but all men, or whatever you said, because some men do it. It kind of like triggered something in me where something I'm very passionate about is it's very similar to like with like racism, like you said with when you said about the stabbings or whatever, and people got saying it's men and this, that, and the other, and it's similar to like when there's an incident and say there's a black person that's been involved in something, and then you get a load of fucking idiots who are racist, and they think everyone, and they paint everyone with that same, brush, or if it's like an Asian person, or and then they're racist towards. And me personally, I've always said, and I always stick by it. I'm like, I don't view people, like you said, as men, women, black, white, straight, gay. I just think a person is a fucking person. And any person can be a cunt. You can't define a cunt by the fucking skin colour or the sex or the gender and stuff like that. And it's mad, and it proper.
I'm gonna put that as Father's Mental Health UK slogan. You can't define a cunt.
So fucking true. Yeah. So yes, that's rabbit hole one, and then rabbit hole two was something you were saying then about obviously it's like a difficult time and stuff like that for men. Or whatever. Like I think that as well in some lights, but then I did like it was like a class that I had to do. Not a class, it was like a presentation, like that they did at my old work, where everyone kind of had to go to it, and it was on privilege. And I don't know if you've heard of it and stuff, but it was because I'm white, I'm straight, and I'm a male. I'm ranked at the top of most privileged. And I'd never heard of it before, but there was like, whereas, and they broke it down, they said like, if you're gay, like black, and or like a woman and stuff like you're ranked a lot lower down and stuff like that. Yeah. So I come out of that and I understood what they was kind of saying, because you are in that position when you're a white straight male and stuff. And I also think, I don't know, like there's a bit part of me where I think like it's also annoying at the same time, like because do you know what I mean, kind of being put in that box. But then everyone turns around and says, yeah, but you don't know what it's like to be X. Do you know what I mean? You don't know what it's like to be this.
I think, right. So you often hear things like, 80% of CEOs are men, 90% of billionaires are men, 70% of people in parliament are men. Okay, cool. 96% of people in prisons in the UK are men. Men die 6 years earlier than women every year in the UK. Men are more likely to die by suicide 3 times over than women. Men are 73% of homicide victims, 87% of drug overdoses. Like, we talk about warfare. How many men die in war? Like, when we talk about privilege, in my opinion at least, it's one of the most outrageous and outdated conversations to have, especially in EDI training. Because, we talk about white male privilege. Don't get me wrong, right? Obviously, I'm a woman, okay? Like, I can't walk down the street sometimes without getting heckled at, right? Do I think that's okay? No, it's not. And do I think that's inherently male behavior? I don't, because the majority of my male friends have gone into clubs and they've told me they've been made to feel uncomfortable by women approaching them and touching their ass, like saying things to them. But that's fun, and girls are just having a time, right? I'm not trying to trivialize catcalling. Real things happen from that. That's by the by. But when we talk about privilege, it feeds into, again, the reluctance of men to talk about their problems. Because if they're being told in fucking EDI training in their workplace that, hey, I know you might feel this way, but fuck you. You can't. Because all these people have this going on and they're going to feel worse than you. Like, it's just bonkers. Like, when you think of it like that, the logic of it just doesn't sit. And so, there are academics out there are people out there that are trying to, have discourse around this, like, and talk about it. But when you try, you're met with, being called a bigot, or being told you're anti-feminist, or, whatever else you want to throw in. But it's, it's a bit of a minefield. And again, I can't imagine what it's like to more or less be dehumanized, which is in itself crazy, because 100 years ago we were dehumanizing people based on their demographic at that point, and we're doing it now in a much smaller sense, but it's happening. So it's just crazy. That's mad.
Yeah, no, it is. It just kind of makes you feel like, all right, fuck me then. Like, do you know what I mean? Just got to crack on with it because I'm fucking privileged. Yeah, well, I was going to ask, do you have any more questions, mate, or do you reckon it's time?
What is it, Trouble Tale time already? Nah, can't be.
If you've got more questions, I just know we're approaching the hour mark, and another Trouble Tales could...
Already? Oh,
go on.
It's too long. I know. We'll have to do it on your part 2, Beth, and talk about like the father roles between sons and daughters, because they play 2 very different roles. And I've done quite a bit of recon on it, and I want to get your take on it. Not to agree or be like, yeah, you're right. Just to see what you think. I've found if it's good or outdated or anything of that nature. So we'll save that for your part 2, and then we'll get into Trouble Tales now.
I could end up learning from you too.
Fucking imagine if I taught you something. You rattled off percentages like fucking Stephen Hawking or something.
Hey, that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, academia, like, research is for everyone. It's not, you fucking tell me something new, I'll be happy about it.
I love research.
I love how much you just rattle your shit off then. It's mega to hear. Yeah.
Humble brag.
Have you had an awkward experience on a date? Have you had a cheeky wank over your mum's mate? Have you found it hard to get hard in the past? Have you found it hard to make girls know you last? 'Cause it's the troubled tales. 'Cause it's the troubled tales. 'Cause it's the troubled tales. Male or female, we don't discriminate here. 'Cause it's the troubled tales. Also, it's anonymous, so any of you freaky wizards out there, don't you worry, we've got you covered.
So, are we ready?
Yes.
Right. So, after a long week of work, double crewed in a car together, just responding to emergencies, a friend of mine, in quote marks, and a female colleague had pretty much covered most topics of conversation that you can get through. The usual music, films, and even meal prep had all been discussed. One late Friday, we've been driving around for 4 hours, and the conversation had turned to a slightly risky, what do you like in the bedroom kind of chat, where said female colleague opened up about her fetishes, love for anal, and things she could never ask her husband for. We are both adults, so we knew this was not like hitting on each other kind of chat, and just known each other for a long time, and it was a safe space between mates. Out of nowhere, we got deployed to a job, an immediate priority category 1 incident where a lady and 2 kids were at risk of dying. Naturally, you spring into action, arrive on scene, start recording on your body cam. Good news, they all survived. We got back to the office and was chatting about what a good job we'd done, and we were so proud to upload our body cam footage to the big screen in the office and show the rest of the team. The body cameras, however, do a pre-record for 60 seconds to show anything important that was pre-incident when you flick the record button. About 25 people had gathered round to watch the heroics of saving 3 lives and were greeted with the tail end of an explicit conversation where she'd said, honestly, the first time I tried anal, it just changed my life. But I have to do it with a toy now because my husband is scared he's going to get shit on his dick. She quickly left the room, but has owned it since. That is unreal. I knew where it was going as soon as he said he flipped the body cams on.
I'd fucking bury myself.
Imagine. That is fucking insane.
That's amazing. Oh my god.
Right, mate, you're up.
I'll apologise in advance for the lag in reading this, but I'm gonna go for it anyway. So this one's been sent in by Anonymous. It's got a title. It says banned from the Bahamas and the USA. So this one time we were conducting operations in the States, and whilst there, some of us had to go to the Bahamas for a week. Hard life, I know, but someone's got to do it. Whilst in the Bahamas, a lot of drinking was taking place, and I may have been what some would call intoxicated. Woke up the next morning with the worst hangover I've ever had to a banging door. When I shouted who it was, the reply was, "It's Lee Evans." I found that hilarious, but that was short-lived. I opened the door and there stood a Royal Navy Chief Petty Officer who was looking far from impressed. He then proceeded to scream at me to get dressed and proceeded to march me to the US senior office. Whilst trying to march and not throw up, I saw the utter carnage that had seemed to have taken place the night before. It was at this point I had a flicker in memory. There I was, stood in front of the high-ranking US officers, along with the UK military personnel, and was given the charge of theft and damage of US government property. I don't think I've ever sobered up so quickly, and that was before they gave me a fine of $1.3 million. Fuck. I then denied all knowledge of what they were talking about until the CCTV footage was produced. There I was, front and centre, jumping off a golf cart and then launching into the side of a building, damaging an electrical pylon, taking out most of the electrics to the island of Andros. I thought I was fucked. My military career over, and I would spend the year in some Bahamian jail rotting away with the rats along with repaying a fine I could never pay back. The next morning, now banned from drinking, I woke up sober to find out the golf cart I jumped was in fact being quote-unquote borrowed by someone else, and the owner knew nothing about it as he was at sea. Turns out the only damage I did to the golf cart was broken torch that was strapped to the hood because of the headlights didn't work. The charges were dropped against me from a lot of UK gentle persuasion, but I was given a lifetime ban from the Bahamas and a 10-year travel sanction to the US. Moral of the story, kids, don't drink and golf cart.
Oh my God.
That's brilliant.
Imagine getting that fine though, 1.3 million. What would you even fucking do? That is mad.
Oh, I'd bury my head in the sand and fucking hope it suffocated me.
That's mental. What a story that is.
Oh, that is amazing.
That first one sat with me. That's fucking awful.
It's insane. I was going to say, actually, a good closing question. We've used this one before, but I think it's appropriate. If you could have a billboard in your hometown and you could write anything on it, what would you put on the billboard?
Oh my God.
Always catches everyone out, this one.
Oh, see, did you guys ever watch Gavin and Stacey?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a really obscure line in that show that no matter what, if you say to any Welsh person, they will laugh. And I don't know how many times you've watched it, but there's a scene with Nessa and Dave, and Nessa's going to visit Stacey and Smithy's going to be there. And she'd previously seen Smithy, and Dave was really concerned that they'd slept together. And Nessa turns around and says, "I didn't have my bag, my tools, my cloak." And that is something that if you say to any Welsh person, they will die. And so I think I would probably put that on the billboard, because then everyone can walk past it and have a little giggle, no matter what's going on with their day, I think.
That's very nice. But yeah, I fucking love Gavin and Stacey. The film in the Christmas part too, aren't they?
Yeah.
I can't wait for that.
Everyone's like counting down. I saw a post yesterday saying 18 weeks until like it comes out.
Is it like more massive in Wales? Because obviously they're Welsh.
Oh my God, it's huge. Like, it's huge. Like, I went to a wedding the other day. I was co-best man for my friend. And I had to get a Gavin and Stacey quote in my speech. Like, it's just like, it's in the blood. Like, it's that and Tom Jones. It's like in the blood. You've got no choice.
That's so good. You okay there, Ryan?
Yeah, I was just waiting because I thought what she was going to say was, "Do you want an omelette?"
To be fair, one of my other favourites is when Bryn goes outside into the street when Smithy and his mates arrive, and like Gavin, he goes, "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of several Englishmen." That's like one of my favourites ever.
Is that when they're working out? They text into the gym and that, don't they?
Oh, yeah. He's like, "You'll never catch me out in Cardiff tonight." And it fast forwards, and he's like, "I can't believe I'm in Cardiff tonight."
It's so fucking funny. What's the thing in the special? I can't remember who it is now because it's been years since I've watched the actual episodes.
Yeah.
But isn't there like a hidden secret between two guys when they went fishing? And like what
fishing
happened?
trip, yeah.
Yeah, the fishing trip.
I really hope they never let us know. I don't even care. I don't even care.
So I can't wait for the new one. Because didn't it end where Smithy proposed to Nessa?
Nessa proposed to Smithy.
Oh yeah, that's it. She proposed to him, yeah.
Yeah.
And did she get him like a tap for Christmas or something like that? She got everyone a tap, didn't she? It's so fucking funny.
I'm going to watch that tonight now after this. After we say goodbye, I'm going to be watching Gavin and Stacey though. You put me in the mood.
Yeah, defo. Well, thank you very much for coming on anyway. It's been a pleasure to finally meet you after several Insta exchanges. But yeah, we'll definitely do a part 2, 100%, because it's been really, really good.
Thank you. No, it's been lush speaking to you guys. And yeah, you know, I mean, it's nice to be able to talk about these topics with, you know, 2 lads. So like, it's, you know, I'm grateful. So thank you.
No, you're very welcome. It's been amazing. And yeah, thanks very much for your time, and enjoy the Airbnb. Get the fucking, get that what's it called?
I will.
Kuru Juan. Get the fucking few more of them down, yeah.
I'm going to this place tomorrow called Bounce Below, and it's like these trampolines in underground mines, and so I'm going to be drinking a lot of these. So it's big fun.
That sounds sick. I do apologise for my internet, but yeah.
Because anyway, it's such a lack.
No, it's good. Well, enjoy your weekend anyway, and
thank you.
It's been mint chatting to you, and we'll get a part 2 on, and hopefully Ryan will have sorted his fucking life out by then and not have a fucking 5-second lag.
That's well, right. Thank you. I'll speak to you guys soon.
Nice one, Beth. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
You still there, lad?